como ciudadanos del mundo, porque al final esto es una aldea global.
Y con eso, con este comentario sobre la aldea global y la empatía, déjame interrumpirte simplemente para escuchar algunas voces más y luego vamos a tener un diálogo muy interesante. Creo que estamos hablando de verdad, estamos hablando de empatía, estamos hablando de conexión humana. Una vez más, muy agradecido de que surgen estos temas y de tenerlos a ustedes y tenerlas presentes hoy aquí. Le voy a dar la palabra a la expresidenta de la República del Ecuador, actual presidenta de la Fundación Vidal, doctora Rosalía Arteaga Serrano.
Buenos días. En primer lugar, gracias por la invitación y la posibilidad de participar en un panel que espero yo que sea provocador, que nos incite a hacer cosas. Bom dia para o governador do estado de Bahia. Eu sou estudante há muito tempo atrás da Universidade Federal da Bahia. Saludé porque creo que también es importante incluir al público brasileño que nos está escuchando. Hace algunos meses tuve la oportunidad de colaborar con una iniciativa que surgió en España, pero que se ha regado en varios países para escribir un libro que se llama La Gran Pausa. Y es un indicador de lo que realmente ocurrió y probablemente ocurra todavía. Esa gran pausa, ese sentirnos aislados, que teníamos que estar en nuestras casas, para quienes tenemos la bendición de tener una casa, porque ya lo dijeron aquí, Ismael Cala y otras personas. Hay mucha gente que no tiene la posibilidad de tener una casa o no tiene un trabajo que le permita hacerlo desde casa, pero para quienes tuvimos esa suerte, de alguna forma la pausa significó un espacio para reflexionar. Y en mi caso particular, yo he sido educadora desde los 16 años. No sé cómo me contrataron como educadora a esa edad para dar clases a jóvenes que inclusive eran mayores que lo que yo era en esa época. Y tengo esa tema de la educación tan dentro de mí que encuentro que la única solución para salir adelante en estos momentos de crisis es el tema de la educación. ¿Por qué? Porque solamente a través de ella aprendemos cosas tan elementales como lavarse las manos, ¿no? Como nos lo dice la propia Organización Mundial de la Salud, que tiene el Día del Lavado de Manos desde hace décadas. Solo a través de la educación aprendemos el respeto al otro, que yo lo sentí cuando visité el ashram, el arte de vivir, y agradezco al Ravi Shankar y agradezco a su organización por habernos invitado a estar presentes en esto que pretende dar pautas, líneas de salida, que van más allá de la posibilidad de vacunar, que es importante, por supuesto. Una de las lecciones que aprendimos con la pandemia es que hay que fortalecer la salud pública, a la que tiene acceso todo mundo, porque la salud privada lo tienen solamente los privilegiados. Entonces, hay que fortalecer salud pública. Decía entonces, la educación que nos enseña respeto, que nos enseña valores, que nos enseña normas de conducta, que nos enseña la forma de interrelacionarnos con otros, es fundamental. Y por eso la otra lección que aprendemos de la pandemia es que hay que fortalecer educación pública también, aquella a la que tiene acceso todo el mundo. Está bien lo privado, colabora, apoya, ayuda. Yo mismo dirijo una ONG, Juan, la Fundación Fidal, no Vidal, Fidal, ¿no? Para la integración y desarrollo de América Latina. Y trabajamos mucho en diversos sectores, pero prácticamente todo lo que hacemos está dirigido a fortalecer la educación. El día de ayer tuve la oportunidad en un board del que pertenezco a la Universidad de Miami, oírle al presidente de la Universidad, Julio Frenk, que nos decía una frase que a mí me parece que tiene que ser casi como el eslogan de salir adelante. No trabajar solamente en un new normal, en una nueva normalidad, sino en una better normal, una mejor normalidad. Es decir, que la pandemia debería darnos la oportunidad de salir mejor ahora, mejor de lo que estamos ahora o de lo que estuvimos antes. ¿Por qué? Porque la pandemia tiene que enseñarnos a ser solidarios. Yo me desespero cuando veo lo que está ocurriendo en buena parte de nuestra América Latina, que son casos de corrupción, inclusive con las medicinas y los hospitales. Eso es desastroso. Hay que pensar mucho más en cómo podemos ejercer la solidaridad, en cómo podemos ayudar a cerrar esa brecha tan terrible, cómo podemos ayudar a que esos especie de cáncer de la democracia que se ha tenido en el mundo entero, los dos cánceres de la democracia son la corrupción y la pobreza, es decir, la inequidad. ¿Cómo podemos ayudar a solucionarlo? ¿Cómo podemos ser más coherentes con esta defensa del planeta que es fundamental? Porque indudablemente estamos en un espacio de tiempo en que si no nos preocupamos por lo que pasa alrededor nuestro, lo que se mencionaba por parte de quienes están en el ámbito de la salud, no podemos ser saludables nosotros solitos. La pandemia nos enseña esto. No saco nada yo de estar saludable si mis vecinos están enfermos. Ocurre lo mismo con el planeta. Tenemos que trabajar por la salud del planeta, por la salud integral de todos los seres humanos y aplicar ese principio de solidaridad. Solo así podemos construir esa better normal, ese mejor futuro que queremos. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, presidenta de la Fundación FIDAL. Gracias por la corrección. Un placer escucharla. Gobernador Costa dos Santos, le voy a dar la palabra. Antes de hacerlo, le quiero pedir disculpas. Sé que usted nos sigue en español y lamento no poder saludarlo como corresponde en portugués. Nos acompaña una intérprete para que las personas que necesitan interpretación al español puedan seguirlo adecuadamente. Bienvenido.
Primeiro, bom dia a todos que compõem essa mesa. É um prazer enorme, quero agradecer a oportunidade e o convite. E quero iniciar com a frase do Ismael, que coincidentemente é uma frase que eu sempre uso, que essa pandemia nos propiciou conhecer o melhor da natureza humana, mas também nos propiciou conhecer o pior da natureza humana. Sejam as pessoas com mandato ou funções públicas, sejam aquelas com funções ou papéis empresariais na sociedade. E se nós queremos discutir, como a nossa vice-presidente, Rosália, e aqui lhe congratulo por você já ter visitado a nossa Bahia, nos comunicou de um mundo melhor, e para um mundo melhor, e para termos confiança de um mundo melhor, é preciso que as pessoas estejam colocadas no centro das políticas públicas. E aqui no estado da Bahia, nós temos buscado fazer isso, fazendo o maior investimento da história do nosso estado em saúde pública, desde o início do nosso mandato, fortalecendo a atenção básica de saúde. São 25 policlínicas regionais que visam fazer atenção básica e diagnóstico das doenças, 10 unidades hospitalares novas apenas no meu mandato de governador. Mas, infelizmente, no plano nacional, nós não temos a mesma postura em relação à saúde pública e à pandemia. O Brasil, o governo central do Brasil, o presidente da República, tem negligenciado de forma persistente o vírus, negado a existência e a gravidade do vírus, negado, inclusive, o papel da vacina. Só agora, recentemente, com a queda drástica da sua aprovação, foi que passou a reconhecer a vacina como uma ferramenta fundamental para tirar o Brasil da crise. E, em função disso, o Brasil vive aí, eu diria, uma tristeza muito grande. Só ontem foram 4.135 óbitos no Brasil, 4.135. Já passamos de mais de 330 mil mortes e, infelizmente, esse número está muito acelerado, com taxa de ocupação em torno de 80%, 90%, em alguns estados, 100% dos hospitais lotados, uma situação muito grave. Aqui no estado da Bahia, nós estamos dos 27 estados, o Brasil tem 27 estados federados, nós somos a segunda menor taxa de mortalidade do Brasil. Mesmo assim, chegamos essa semana a 15 mil óbitos, e o Brasil passa de 330 mil óbitos nessa pandemia. O Brasil atrasou muito a compra, pela negação do governo federal, da compra das vacinas. e o marco legal brasileiro não permite aos estados subnacionais a aquisição dessas vacinas. Recentemente tivemos uma aprovação no Congresso Nacional de uma lei que tem a função, tem o papel de facilitar a compra de vacinas pelos estados subnacionais. Nós fizemos uma compra internacional da vacina russa, Sputnik. Mesmo assim, a agência reguladora brasileira, a Anvisa, que é órgão do governo federal, ainda protela e adia a compra dessas vacinas, ou seja, sem dar um horizonte concreto para reduzirmos o grau de contaminação aqui no nosso país. E o pior, já que estamos discutindo ética, confiança e um mundo melhor, infelizmente também conhecemos o pior, eu diria, do papel de empresários ou de empresas ou de políticos. Para nossa tristeza, a Câmara Federal Brasileira ontem aprovou, ainda em primeira votação, um projeto de lei que permite que os ricos se vacinem antes dos pobres, ou seja, permitindo a compra por empresas privadas de vacina, o que, infelizmente, vai na contramão do que é a história da saúde pública brasileira, que tem no SUS um pilar fundamental de acesso gratuito à saúde, da atenção básica à alta complexidade. Esse projeto ainda vai para o Senado, mas lamentamos muito. E nos faz questionar, de fato, construiremos um mundo melhor após a pandemia, já que quais as empresas irão associar sua imagem de responsabilidade social à compra e à prioridade para que os ricos se vacinem antes da maioria das pessoas. E como aqui foi dito, infelizmente, a pandemia, além de mortes, tem trazido fome, a fome voltou a crescer no Brasil, voltou a crescer o número de desempregados, de pessoas extremamente pobres, o que facilita, infelizmente, um discurso negacionista e nos deixa muito preocupados, porque o ambiente aqui, por parte, eu diria, do governo central, é de difusão de notícias falsas, de negação da doença, de negação da ciência e aprofundamento da crise. Então, o Brasil vive um momento muito difícil e é um momento muito rico para discutir, de fato, ética e que mundo iremos construir depois dessa pandemia. Mas o mundo que virá depois não será construído necessariamente quando acabar a pandemia. Nós construiremos ele a partir da pandemia e do combate à pandemia. Muito obrigado.
Gobernador, muchísimas gracias. Para toda nuestra región, Brasil es un país muy importante. Agradezco su sinceridad y la claridad con la que ha expresado la situación. Usted tiene a su cargo un Estado muy importante económica y culturalmente, así que deseamos todo lo mejor para la pronta recuperación de las personas, de las sociedades en las distintas comunidades de Brasil y, por supuesto, para toda la región, pero fue muy emotivo poder escucharlo. Muchas gracias. Le vamos a dar la palabra ahora al honorable representante del Congreso de la República de Colombia, Juan Carlos Lozada. Bienvenido, Juan Carlos.
Hola, Juan, un gusto estar aquí. Realmente es un honor poder compartir con este panel de lujo. Por supuesto, contigo, Juan, agradecerle la invitación al World Forum for Ethics in Business y, por supuesto, a la Fundación El Arte de Vivir. Y, por supuesto, a su fundador, Ravi Shankar, por supuesto, muchísimas gracias por la invitación. Bueno, como decía Juan, tal vez aquí este panel está un poco recargado hacia los colombianos. Tuvimos la oportunidad de tener al ministro, por supuesto que está con nosotros el profesor Andrés Vecino, que también es colombiano, si bien está en Estados Unidos. Para nosotros es un honor poder participar aquí como colombianos.
Se oye.
Pues Juan, yo creo que ¿no se escucha?
No.
Creo que Rosalía no me está escuchando.
Yo te escucho perfecto, Juan Carlos.
Ah.
Gobernador, ¿usted lo escucha? Sí. Rosalía, fíjate por favor si es un problema de tu volumen en tu computador.
A los demás les escucho bien, pero bueno, está bien, el volumen está un poco bajo de lo que habla el ministro.
Lo siento, Rosalía. Juan Carlos, adelante.
Juan, yo creo que la pregunta que nos formula este panel para congregarnos aquí a conversar debe ser posiblemente la pregunta más importante de todas. Aquí yo creo que hoy en día sobre el tema de la pandemia lo hemos abordado en múltiples paneles y en múltiples discusiones desde muchos ángulos, pero tal vez no desde cómo vamos a recuperar la confianza, que es uno de los temas más fundamentales. Porque justamente si algo minó la pandemia posiblemente ha sido la confianza. La ministra Eira lo decía de manera muy elocuente. En América Latina, que estamos acostumbrados a una cercanía tan grande, hoy la desconfianza está planteada hasta en la propia relación más personal con el otro, que puede ser una fuente de contagio para todos nosotros, y hasta en la propia desconfianza con nosotros mismos, que no sabemos si podemos ser vectores de la pandemia y en ese sentido llevársela a seres queridos, a nuestros padres, a nuestros abuelos, que son tan importantes en la sociedad latinoamericana. Pues que hay que poner esto además en un contexto un poco más amplio, Juan, y es qué estaba sucediendo en América Latina justo antes de que llegara esta pandemia y cómo esta pandemia entró a jugar en ese contexto. Y no podemos olvidar que a finales del año 2019 la movilización social en América Latina tal vez no tenía precedentes en la historia. Las movilizaciones sociales en Chile, las movilizaciones en Bolivia, como lo decía bien el gobernador de Bahía, movilizaciones en Brasil, en Colombia, a finales del año 2019 las movilizaciones sociales fueron gigantescas. Y esto es porque América Latina es un continente donde la confianza en las instituciones es muy baja, muy poca. Fíjense ustedes, por ejemplo, cómo en la última medición del barómetro de las Américas sobre la confianza institucional, en América Latina ella es apenas del 57.7%, cuando hace apenas 10 años era casi del 70%, lo que quiere decir que la confianza latinoamericana en las instituciones en la última década ha decrecido enormemente. Y por supuesto que las movilizaciones sociales que reclaman mayor equidad, mayor justicia, mayor igualdad en nuestra región eran ya enormemente significativas. Yo creo que la pandemia nos ayudó a desnudar aún más esas inequidades sociales, como lo presentaba la expresidenta Rosalía, y que por supuesto nos pone, como dice Ismael Cala también, en el camino de ¿y entonces qué vamos a hacer? ¿Cómo vamos a recuperar la confianza en nosotros mismos, la confianza en el otro, la confianza en las instituciones y por supuesto cómo vamos a salir de esta pandemia fortalecidos? Yo diría, Juan, que lo primero que tenemos que, entender es cuál es la causa profunda de esta pandemia. Porque si no somos capaces de preguntarnos por cuál es la causa de esta pandemia, posiblemente, Ismael, nos vamos a perder la lección más importante. No podemos perder de vista ni por un solo segundo que esta pandemia fue causada por una zoonótica, por una enfermedad zoonótica, como lo han sido creadas todas las pandemias en los últimos 100 años en este planeta. Si es el ébola, si es el SIDA o el COVID-19, todas han provenido de un contagio que nos han transmitido los animales silvestres a los humanos. Y yo creo que eso hay que tenerlo en enorme claridad, por una razón esencial. Y es que en América Latina, que tenemos la tasa de biodiversidad más grande de este planeta, justamente porque tenemos aquí, entre Colombia y Panamá, el tapón del Darién, que en menos de un 1% de el territorio del planeta albergamos más del 10% de la biodiversidad, que tenemos solamente en Colombia el 7% del bioma amazónico, Brasil teniendo, por supuesto, la mayor parte de ello, pero esto lo compartimos tanto con Ecuador como con Bolivia, como con Perú. Tenemos la posibilidad de tener la mayor riqueza natural del planeta hoy. Por supuesto que tenemos que entender que si destruimos ese hábitat, no surgirán sino nuevas pandemias, porque nuestra errónea relación con la animalidad silvestre, que hoy se ve desplazada por el crecimiento de la frontera agrícola, es sin duda la generadora de esta pandemia y muy seguramente la generadora de pandemias a venir, de pandemias futuras. Y en ese sentido yo comparto plenamente lo que dijo la doctora Ira Ruiz, creo que el gobernador de Bahía puede estar de acuerdo conmigo. Y es que no solamente nos tenemos que preocupar por cómo estamos en el tema del manejo de la pandemia con nuestros vecinos como una fórmula de, digamos, erradicar la pandemia en América Latina, sino que hoy tenemos que hacer una reflexión mucho más profunda, y es qué está haciendo América Latina para combatir la, si se quiere, más profunda de las causas de esta pandemia, que sin duda es el deterioro ambiental de nuestro planeta. Porque desgraciadamente, tanto Brasil como Colombia somos los dos primeros países que más traficamos con fauna silvestre en el planeta. En el caso de Colombia, más de 450.000 animales son hoy víctimas del tráfico de fauna silvestre. En Brasil debe ser 3 o 4 veces la cifra de nuestro país. Pero entre Brasil y Colombia somos los dos países, 2 de los 3 o 4 países que más estamos deforestando en este planeta y que más estamos creciendo la frontera agrícola justamente hacia la región de la Amazonía. Y por supuesto que si reconocemos que la crisis climática hoy es el primer problema, tal vez el problema más grave y el más estructural de todos, pero además es la causa profunda de esta pandemia, entonces a América Latina le cabe hoy una de las responsabilidades más grandes de este planeta en términos de la conservación de los hábitats, de la conservación de lo que el Papa Francisco ha llamado la casa común, de esta madre naturaleza, la Pachamama, que para los latinoamericanos es una entidad viva, una entidad que debe ser respetada como una entidad viva. Entonces no vamos a lograr salir de esta crisis ni generar equidad, puesto que la crisis climática, está comprobado hoy, será la primera fuente de inequidad para el planeta. Y por supuesto que si América Latina es el centro de esa lucha, a nosotros nos cabe una enorme responsabilidad. Yo creo que si América Latina es capaz de darle ejemplo al mundo de una lucha frontal en contra de la crisis climática, de una lucha frontal en contra de la pérdida de biodiversidad, de un manejo racional de los recursos naturales, entonces vamos a dar el ejemplo más grande de todos de cómo vamos a recuperar la confianza en la humanidad, que creo que hoy la ve perdida justamente porque ve que el planeta se nos desvanece en nuestras manos y que no hemos sido capaces de tomar las decisiones que corresponden con respecto a esa crisis. Y justamente creo que la pandemia nos dejó varias enseñanzas de que en realidad cuando entendemos que tenemos un problema global, un problema que ataca directamente a nuestra especie, somos capaces de tomar decisiones audaces, que somos capaces de tomar decisiones inmediatas y que somos capaces de tomar decisiones que pueden ser efectivas y que pueden ser, digamos, basadas en la cooperación internacional. Todas esas enseñanzas que nos deja la pandemia nos tienen que dar la confianza de saber que podemos tomar decisiones en cuanto a la crisis climática y que esto redundará, por supuesto, en el bienestar de toda nuestra región. No puedo cerrar sin decir que, por supuesto, a nosotros nos preocupa enormemente, gobernador, el gobierno de Jair Bolsonaro, que no solamente ha negado a la pandemia, sino que ha negado la crisis climática. Luego, ha negado los dos problemas más estructurales que vive hoy nuestra sociedad, uno de ellos algo más coyuntural, el de la pandemia, pero por supuesto más estructuralmente el de la crisis climática. Y por supuesto que Brasil es el primer deforestador del planeta. Brasil ha pasado por encima, desgraciadamente, de las comunidades indígenas. Solamente en el año 2019 el INPE mostró cómo se quemaron, hubo 75.000 quemas en el Brasil, en la Amazonía brasilera. Y lo mismo sucedió con Evo Morales en Bolivia, más de 4 millones de hectáreas quemadas en la Chiquitanía, y por supuesto que Colombia no se queda atrás con más de 250.000 hectáreas de bosque deforestado al año. Si eso continúa de esa manera, va a ser absolutamente imposible hacerle frente a las pandemias del futuro y por supuesto a la equidad que todos en América Latina nos soñamos. Pero creo que en la pandemia están las claves para recuperar la confianza y poder avanzar hacia un mundo mucho más sostenible, que creo que es la clave del futuro.
Juan Carlos, muchísimas gracias. Anoté un montón de cosas que me gustaría retomar en unos minutos. Traes algo muy importante a la mesa, que es que no estamos hablando solamente del cuidado de la vida humana, sino del cuidado del ecosistema del que formamos parte. Muchísimas gracias, Juan Carlos, y le voy a dar la palabra entonces al doctor Andrés Vecino de la Universidad de Johns Hopkins. Andrés.
Pues muchas gracias, Juan. Un saludo a todos y todas. Raúl, Juan, gracias a la Fundación Arte Vivir y al World Forum for Ethics and Business. Pues muchas gracias por la amable invitación. Bom dia a Gobernador dos Santos y bem-vindo. Cuando me pidieron hablar sobre este tema de confianza, digamos que yo empecé a pensar en digamos, qué tipos de niveles de confianza existen y cómo se pueden de alguna manera dimensionar en un marco conceptual. Quizás hay 4 niveles: el individual, el de negocios, el institucional y el nivel de gobierno nacional, digamos, gobiernos locales y nacionales. Y por supuesto hay redes de confianza entre todos estos agentes. Yo creo que, digamos, a mí después de escuchar a mis colegas de panel, creo que vale la pena enfocarse en 2, digamos, de estos nexos importantes. Uno de ellos es la confianza entre la población y la ciencia, y otro es la confianza entre la población y los gobiernos. Entonces, pues muy brevemente, en temas de confianza entre la población y la ciencia, digamos, ya estábamos viendo hace unos años una creciente desconfianza, digamos, no hacia la ciencia en general, porque es muy difícil de alguna manera salirse del rol de la ciencia. La ciencia está en todas partes, en cada una de las actividades que realizamos, pero sí quizás hacia los avances marginales, discretos, los avances específicos de la ciencia, digamos, muy concretos que vemos día a día. El avance de una vacuna, el avance de un antibiótico, un hallazgo específico, digamos, encontrado. Y al mismo tiempo vimos, digamos, ese cambio que se estaba observando, de esa confianza hacia la ciencia, hacia quizás un mayor énfasis a la confianza hacia quienes están cerca, hacia quienes te hablan en la red social, hacia lo que te dice el tío, el primo, la abuela. Y yo creo que esto de alguna manera se ha agudizado en esta pandemia, se ha agudizado porque las personas han tenido la oportunidad de ver a la ciencia en tiempo real. Y han visto cómo los científicos manejan la incertidumbre, y no es la misma forma como se maneja la incertidumbre en público. En público, algunos de ustedes son o han sido tomadores de decisiones. Ustedes tienen que llegar directamente a comunicar certezas, cuando la ciencia está llena de incertidumbres. Y eso ha llevado, digamos, creo yo, a que la gente también esté expuesta a los cambios de paradigmas y a los cambios de recomendaciones. Hemos visto, hoy en día tenemos una gran incertidumbre. Por ejemplo, hoy sabemos que las vacunas nos protegen y reducen la transmisión, pero no sabemos en qué nivel reducen la transmisión, ¿cierto? Eso continúa siendo una incertidumbre, pero cuando lo vamos a comunicar, tenemos que decirle a la gente, las vacunas reducen la transmisión. Con los cambios de paradigmas, hemos visto lo que ocurrió con las máscaras, hemos visto lo que ocurrió con las vacunas. El año pasado muchos pensábamos que no iba a ser posible tener vacunas el siguiente año. Siendo 2021, le estamos pidiendo a la gente que se ponga vacunas porque sabemos que son eficaces, que el año pasado pensamos que no iba a ser posible crear. Entonces, yo creo que esto, digamos, sí ha acrecentado esa desconfianza hacia la ciencia, porque la gente ha estado expuesta de alguna manera un poco sin introducción a cómo la ciencia funciona. Y yo creo que hay 3 temas ahí que son importantes, quizás de corto, mediano y largo plazo, en los que tenemos que enfocarnos más. Uno de ellos es, tenemos que mejorar la comunicación por parte de los científicos. Y esto implica que, entre otras cosas, think tanks, universidades, instituciones de investigación, no solamente entrenen, sino que den incentivos a sus investigadores para que esto, digamos, cuente dentro de los temas de servicio que se generan. Por otro lado, creo que hay un tema también que quizás se acerca un poco más a lo que mencionaba Ismael, y es acercar el tema del periodismo científico también. Lograr comunicar efectivamente y que los mismos periodistas conozcan cómo comunicar esta incertidumbre de una forma, digamos, positiva, asertiva, que genere confianza en la ciencia en vez digamos, de reducirla. Y otro tema de largo plazo, creo yo, es que creo que nos hemos dado cuenta de la importancia del alfabetismo científico. ¿no? La importancia de que desde los colegios podamos enseñarle a los niños cómo se hace ciencia y cómo los científicos manejan la incertidumbre. Sin esto es muy difícil que cuando este tipo de crisis ocurren, la gente, la población general, digamos, logren aceptar estos niveles de incertidumbre y cómo los manejamos. Ese es un tema. El otro tema es el de confianza entre la población y los gobiernos. Y digamos que hay mucha evidencia científica que muestra que la confianza es esencial para manejar crisis y en general una pandemia. Hay evidencia científica que muestra que la confianza mejora el cumplimiento, por ejemplo, de la ley, que es un asunto que hemos visto particularmente en nuestros países donde muchos han tenido que ir a cierres. Son normas difíciles de seguir, son normas costosas que han costado, digamos, ingresos a negocios y personas. Y la confianza es esencial para que la gente esté dispuesta a cumplir con las mismas. Y hay dos temas importantes que determinan la confianza de la gente en sus gobiernos. Uno es el récord previo, ¿cierto? El récord percibido. ¿Cómo le ha ido antes? ¿Y cómo anticipo yo que va a funcionar este gobierno manejando esta crisis, dado su funcionamiento previo? El otro es la capacidad moral de responder de estos gobiernos. Y me estoy refiriendo a gobiernos tanto locales como nacionales. ¿Es realmente este gobierno tiene la capacidad moral para responder efectivamente en mi beneficio? Esa es la pregunta que se hacen los ciudadanos. Y eso definitivamente es importante para generar confianza. Si un gobierno no ha invertido previamente en generar esa confianza y esa confianza en su capacidad moral, es muy difícil que cuando vayan a poner medidas o cuando vayan a hacer recomendaciones, digamos, la población los vaya a seguir. Y hemos visto también, y creo que ahí también ha habido un error quizá de los tomadores de decisiones, que se ha percibido la confianza como un proceso estático, pero realmente es un proceso dinámico. El año pasado vimos que apenas empezó la pandemia, los índices de popularidad de gobernantes locales y nacionales se incrementaron. La gente acudía a ellos, ponía atención, ¿qué es lo que tenemos que hacer? Y después lo que vimos fue una progresiva reducción a medida que, de alguna manera, ha sido difícil, para todos los países ha sido difícil, digamos, manejar la pandemia, porque es difícil, porque es una pandemia, es una situación de crisis para la cual nadie estaba preparado. Entonces, digamos que ese proceso dinámico es importante entenderlo y definitivamente esos dos factores que mencioné previamente van a ayudar a determinar cómo la gente va a sentir confianza en sus gobernantes hacia el futuro. De esta manera, yo creo que hay dos temas importantes. Uno de ellos es los gobiernos, desafortunadamente, locales y nacionales se han visto en la necesidad de apagar incendios inmediatos y la dificultad, digamos, en pensar estratégicamente en mediano y largo plazo cómo generar esa confianza, cómo mejorarla. Digamos, en el trabajo de sistemas de salud, que es donde yo trabajo, hay aspectos, digamos, que se sabe que son importantes. Uno de ellos es la efectiva comunicación del riesgo. Eso es un tema, digamos, que ha sido ampliamente discutido, está ampliamente documentado. Otro es la utilización de gestores previos de confianza, líderes sociales, párrocos, este tipo de líderes que ya tienen confianza en sus comunidades y que pueden gestionar la confianza hacia la población, porque hemos visto que desafortunadamente y en forma totalmente comprensible los tomadores de decisiones han tenido que ir rápidamente a tomar medidas que son verticales, no consultadas, y si bien eso estuvo bien al inicio, creo que es un momento de parar, tomar un respiro y mirar y reflexionar qué hicimos bien, qué hicimos mal y cómo podemos generar esta confianza en más mediano y largo plazo y, digamos, dejar de estar un poco en ese estado de emergencia que si bien es bueno en el corto plazo, en el mediano y largo plazo ya termina siendo menos positivo. Entonces creo que esos dos temas son importantes. Quisiera cerrar y porque tengo el privilegio de poder cerrar esta primera sección. Una cosa muy importante que dijo la doctora Arteaga es enfocarnos no en una nueva normalidad, sino en una mejor normalidad. Y creo que hay 3 puntos importantes que mencionaron mis compañeros. Uno de ellos, que dijo el gobernador Dos Santos, centrarse en las personas. Otro que dijo el representante Lozada, ponerle mucha atención a la relación que hay entre la salud y el medio ambiente. Este va a ser el gran tema de nuestra siguiente generación. Y otro aspecto que sí mencionó la doctora Ruiz que me parece importante destacar de nuevo, y es la posibilidad de actuar en bloque en el continente. Los países de América Latina y el Caribe tienen más población que la Unión Europea, son más de 600 millones de personas. Tenemos la capacidad de actuar en forma unificada y coordinada si nos lo proponemos. Y eso quizás es un gran reto que tenemos también para la próxima generación.
Andrés, muchísimas gracias. Retomando lo que acabas de decir, me parece que tenemos un potencial extraordinario y que nuestra mayor confianza y la mayor esperanza para nuestra región nace de reconocer el potencial que tenemos como región. El virus nos ha demostrado que no conoce ni murallas ni fronteras, pero nuestras sociedades se han formado, construido con instituciones muchas veces separadas, muchas veces aisladas, muchas veces los propios ministerios de un gobierno son silos aislados. Y sin embargo, estos problemas globales no son problemas de una jurisdicción o de un ministerio o de un área aislada. Quiero que escuchemos 3 minutos nada más de un video del doctor Moreno Ocampo que plantea algo muy interesante y muy inspirador sobre el desafío institucional, que él lo plantea como quizás uno de los desafíos más grandes que tenemos para los próximos años, y haré entonces una pregunta para que en su descargo final cada uno pueda hacer una exploración en base a esta inspiración que nos deja el doctor Moreno Ocampo. Sergio, si estás de acuerdo, ponemos el video, por favor.
La pandemia es un súper ejemplo de cómo hay problemas que son al mismo tiempo nacionales, locales y globales, ¿no? Y por eso nos permite pensarlo. Bueno, ¿quién decide esto? Ahora, el hecho de que haya vacunas generó una posibilidad interesante, pero el presidente de la Organización Mundial de la Salud dice, miren, tenemos un problema porque no puede ser que los estados que tengan recursos sean los únicos que vacunan a toda su población, porque lo que va a pasar es que los estados más pobres, la gente de los países más pobres van a seguir infectando a todo el mundo. Entonces, el tema de nacionalismo en la vacunación no es solamente inmoral, sino que es contraproducente. No se va a cambiar el problema. Entonces, es un buen ejemplo de cómo el siglo XXI nos obliga a pensar en términos globales, de que la comunidad nuestra no es solamente mi país o mi ciudad o barrio, o mis amigos, sino mi comunidad incluye a la humanidad. Porque los peligros vienen por la humanidad también. El cambio de clima no lo va a resolver mi barrio ni mi país. Y ahora el siglo XXI con la revolución de Internet nos está generando una nueva demanda. Tenemos que armar justamente, la pandemia se expande tan rápido por los medios. Tenemos una tecnología infernal de comunicación y de movimiento. Así que necesitamos similar tecnología para enfrentar los problemas que generamos. Y ahí tengo que pensar cómo lo hacemos. No va a haber una receta única. Va a haber una solución ad hoc para cada caso, donde las instituciones van a jugar un papel, pero también las herramientas tecnológicas van a jugar un papel, ¿no? Entonces, tenemos que reinventar las instituciones. Y eso, yo siento que justamente mi apoyo a la gente como vos, que se educó de educación, o que se inspira en el arte de vivir y en la filosofía hindú, que yo creo es fundamental, es aportar, bueno, esta filosofía hindú nos permite entender la idea de la comunidad global. Entendamos que la ley tiene algunas herramientas que tenemos que comprender para utilizarlas y tenemos que disolver para que no nos compliquen la vida. Porque, por ejemplo, el Estado Nacional es el factor más importante para reducir la violencia en el mundo, pero también el Estado Nacional es el que produce las guerras. Así que tenemos que superar eso. Tenemos que inventar algo más grande. ¿Cómo lo hacemos? No vamos a repetir el siglo XVIII, no vamos a repetir el modelo de Estado Nacional. Va a ser una combinación de instituciones antiguas o modernas con nueva tecnología. Hasta ahora tecnología la usamos para Cambridge Analytica, para drones, para matar gente, para marketing. Tenemos que inventarla para armar comunidad. Vamos a divertirnos. Me parece que es muy importante para mí entender, no estoy solo. Yo no lo puedo hacer solo. Yo me estoy obsesionado con estos temas globales porque yo fui el primer empleado público mundial, independiente. Cuando yo fui la fiscal de la Corte Penal Internacional, yo tenía autoridad absoluta para investigar jefes de Estado en todo el mundo. Bueno, Y ahí aprendí cómo podemos articularnos, cómo podemos armarnos. Y ahí aprendí que no estamos que nadie es tan fuerte para hacerlo solo, pero nadie es tan débil para no ayudar. Yo quiero ayudar.
Nadie es tan fuerte para hacerlo solo y nadie es tan débil para no ayudar. Quiero tomar esta frase final de Luis Moreno Ocampo. Esta mañana el director general, el presidente de la Organización Mundial de la Salud, el doctor Tedros, en la apertura de esta conferencia, mencionó el inmenso esfuerzo que hemos hecho y que hemos visto a lo largo de esta pandemia. No solo el esfuerzo extraordinario del personal de la salud en todo el mundo, sino también el esfuerzo de docentes, de empleados públicos, de pequeños y medianos comerciantes. También el doctor Tedros nos recordó sobre los límites del mercado, sobre las empresas y los países que intentan alcanzar algún provecho propio en medio de estas circunstancias, en donde todo el apoyo tiene que ser para que toda la humanidad pueda salir adelante. Y las palabras de él fueron: somos una humanidad que compartimos el mismo ADN, los mismos sueños y el mismo planeta. Me gustaría invitarlos a que hagan sus reflexiones finales sobre este concepto del bien común y de la cultura común del cuidado, no para mi grupo, para mi país, para mi provincia, sino el bien común. Y creo que la pandemia ha sido un gran ejemplo, porque la colaboración que ha habido para alcanzar las vacunas en un tiempo récord ha sido extraordinaria. Me gustaría plantearles cómo construimos sociedades más justas, más inclusivas, cómo construimos organizaciones que se miran menos a sí mismas nada más, menos nacionales y más globales, para utilizar las palabras del doctor Moreno Ocampo. Organizaciones que no solamente miran al ser humano, sino que construyan una perspectiva y una cultura de cuidado que sea genuina y realmente inclusiva para todos y todas las personas, que incluya a todas las comunidades del planeta y que incluya a cada uno de los ecosistemas que sostienen la vida en este planeta Tierra que compartimos. Cada uno va a tener 2 minutos, les voy a pedir que no se extiendan, así podemos cerrar en tiempo y forma, pero con esta inspiración les pido que hagan el cierre que deseen hacer y con el que deseen dejarnos. Muchas gracias. Le voy a dar la palabra a la doctora Eira Ruiz, una vez más.
Muchas gracias. La verdad, primero agradecer este espacio de compartir. He aprendido mucho de cada una de las ponencias y que nos deja la enseñanza de que esta pandemia definitivamente nos ha revelado, nos ha mostrado de manera cruda, de que sí nos necesitamos todos para poder salvarnos, salvar al planeta, salvar a la humanidad. Esto es un tema global, esto es un tema de conjunto. Como lo dije en mi intervención, en mi primera intervención, de nada vale estar bien mi país o mi familia o yo si el resto no lo está. Entonces aquí el llamado es a trabajar en equipo, desde adentro, a trabajar como una sola comunidad del planeta Tierra y poder entre todos, los más fuertes y los más débiles, juntos poder avanzar y tener una mejor vida. Entonces me quedo con esta reflexión de la colaboración a nivel global.
Muchísimas gracias. Gobernador, si es tan amable para darnos sus palabras finales.
Mais uma vez, agradecendo a oportunidade e que possamos, eu diria, já no momento de enfrentamento da pandemia, fixar os pilares do mundo que desejamos, da sociedade que desejamos. Isso passa, como aqui foi dito, pelo exercício da solidariedade entre os países, do apoio mútuo, não só regional, mas global, e que também possamos enfrentar uma nova ordem de inclusão social, onde o ser humano esteja no centro das ações e das políticas públicas, e aqui, como foi citado, se o ser humano tem que estar no centro, das ações globais, as ações voltadas à saúde pública e à educação são os pilares fundamentais para a construção de um novo mundo, de um novo patamar de humanidade. E junto com a educação e saúde, eu diria que está a relação do homem com o meio ambiente, do homem com o planeta. É um pilar fundamental, e isso só será construído também num patamar global, numa relação global. E possamos construir isso a partir de cada local que vivemos, mas também nessa integração e nessa relação que fazemos com outras nações e outros povos. Aqui vamos continuar lutando contra a disseminação que, infelizmente, há 2 ou 3 anos se tornou preponderante no nosso país, a disseminação de muitas notícias falsas, muito chamado fake news, associados à doença, associado a outras notícias, que vem junto, correlato com a propagação do ódio, de discriminação racial, de discriminação regional, das mais diversos preconceitos. Então, nós estamos vivendo algumas batalhas ao mesmo tempo, a batalha contra o vírus, a batalha contra a desinformação, a calúnia, a mentira e a batalha contra o ódio. Mas somos fortes e haveremos de vencer todas essas batalhas. Muito obrigado.
Al contrario, muchísimas gracias a usted.
Los rasgos principales sobre lo que acabó de decir el gobernador: fijar los pilares de solidaridad entre países. Estamos hablando de una cuestión global y no regional, y enfrentar una nueva orden de inclusión donde el ser humano es el centro de las políticas públicas, un nuevo mundo donde la educación y la salud, el hombre junto con el medio ambiente son los pilares fundamentales, y a partir de esto integrar las naciones para luchar contra las fake news, las noticias falsas y el odio nacional, racial y entre las culturas. Esa es la lucha que tenemos que enfrentar ahora en adelante.
Muchísimas gracias por la interpretación. Juan Carlos Lozada, representante del Honorable Congreso de Colombia, por favor.
Sí, Juan, tal vez a mí me gustaría cerrar tal vez con las palabras de Ravi Shankar en realidad. Y él dice que la naturaleza no es cruel. La naturaleza nunca nos impone un reto que nosotros no seamos capaces de atravesar. Y yo creo que si la humanidad está viviendo este reto como especie, si está viviendo este reto como sociedad, es porque como sociedad y como colectivo somos capaces de atravesar este reto. Y yo creo que eso hay que tenerlo claro y presente. Ahora tenemos de alguna manera que volver esa posibilidad de atravesar el reto una realidad y hacerlo como humanidad, como sociedad, hacerlo como comunidad humana. Por supuesto que el maestro Shankar también dice que los más bellos diamantes se forjan bajo la mayor de las presiones. Entre mayor es la presión sobre el diamante, más bello termina siendo él. Y creo que hoy la humanidad tiene una circunstancia inimaginada para convertirse en su mejor versión. Ojalá que no perdamos esa posibilidad y que miremos a lo que es realmente importante solucionar en nuestra sociedad para hacerle frente a esta crisis, porque eso nos convertirá, sin ninguna duda, Ismael, en nuestra mejor versión. Hacia allá es hacia donde tenemos que caminar. No solamente como individuos, sino que hoy, en este nuevo paradigma global, en este nuevo paradigma en el que la humanidad se reconoce como una, porque las fronteras se agotan, porque nuestras distancias se acortan, hoy tenemos la responsabilidad de convertirnos también en la mejor versión como grupo, como sociedad. Y creo que esta pandemia vino al planeta para obligarnos, si se quiere, a tener que transitar ese camino y transitarlo juntos. En el mundo del yoga hay un principio que es fundamental, que es el de Sangha Chatwam, caminamos juntos, lo podemos hacer de manera inconsciente y darnos cuenta que hemos caminado juntos de todas maneras, así no seamos conscientes de ello, pero que si lo hacemos de manera consciente, ese caminar juntos, entonces nos lleva en una dirección. Y esa dirección debe ser la de una sociedad mucho más justa, la de una sociedad posible medioambientalmente y, por supuesto, la de una sociedad creativa y feliz, sobre todo. Así que ojalá que esta pandemia sea la oportunidad para que caminemos juntos hacia los valores humanos más elevados. Muchísimas gracias a todos por haber participado, al gobernador, me da muchísimo gusto conocerlo, por supuesto a la presidenta Rosalía, que dio una charla extraordinaria, a la enorme elocuencia de la doctora Ruiz, al conocimiento tan taxativo y profundo del profesor Andrés Vecino, muchísimas gracias. A Juan, por supuesto, y yo soy fan declarado de Ismael Cara, así que para mí fue un honor haber participado en este panel. Muchísimas gracias a todos y a todas.
Muchas gracias, Juan Carlos. Como siempre, un placer escucharte. Doctora Rosalía, si es tan amable de darnos sus palabras.
Gracias. Es indudable que vivimos en un mundo global. El tema de la pandemia lo ha demostrado más que nunca, porque estamos abocados precisamente a que un virus que surge en Asia llega en cuestión de días y se expande por el mundo. Los cambios climáticos nos demuestran que lo que hacemos en los Andes, ecuatorianos, peruanos, bolivianos, etcétera, influye de manera decisiva en cómo es la composición de las tierras de la cuenca amazónica que desemboca en el Atlántico, y el Atlántico besa las costas de Europa y los Estados Unidos. Una contaminación por mercurio que surge en la zona andina fácilmente puede llegar a los Estados Unidos o Europa. Alguien decía hace años que si en Estados Unidos batía alas una mariposa, podía producirse un terremoto en el Japón. Tal vez ahora tendremos que pensar que ese batir de alas se produce en China y nos afecta a todos. Es decir, lo de la globalización con la tecnología, con las finanzas, porque también incide en el mundo de las finanzas. Si un banco quiebra en un país o se produce una burbuja inmobiliaria en un momento determinado en los Estados Unidos, la economía del mundo tiembla. Entonces, la globalización existe. Pero por otro lado tenemos lo local. Lo local tiene que ver con la identidad, con quiénes somos como personas y como pueblos, cómo nos gusta la comida de nuestro país, nuestra religión, nuestros lazos culturales. Todo eso es importante, lo local, ¿no? A veces parecería que están en lucha, lo local y lo global. Yo propongo, porque este es el momento de las propuestas, que tengamos una mirada glocal. Aquello que es un neologismo, porque la lengua está viva y podemos decirlo o en inglés o en portugués o en cualquier lengua. Lo glocal se compone de dos vocablos en la parte idiomática, lingüística, filológica, pero nos da la idea de un concepto que es una aproximación. Lo local nos hace ser ciudadanos del mundo, pero respetuosos de nuestra propia identidad y de la de los otros. Es decir, yo tengo libertades, pero esas libertades van hasta donde están las libertades de los otros. Entonces, mi propuesta frente a lo que está ocurriendo es que tengamos una mirada local, aquello que nos comunica con los demás de una manera realmente extraordinariamente cercana, que nos hace percibir las diferencias, aceptar las diversidades. Ya se mencionó aquí, nuestros países están entre los mega biodiversos del mundo. Yo lo aprendí de una forma visual cuando dirigía la organización del Tratado de Cooperación Amazónica y casi que me caminé y navegué por la Amazonía de nuestros 8 países. Y esa biodiversidad extraordinaria nos hace percibir que tenemos que respetar la diferencia, que tenemos que ser conscientes de lo que los otros hacen, de lo que los otros quieren, sin resignar aquello que también nosotros queremos, porque somos ciudadanos que debemos ser respetados. Local es la palabra para enfrentar estos temas que nos ha traído la pandemia y muchos otros que podemos mencionar. Gracias, y gracias por la invitación y un gusto haber participado con todos ustedes.
Muchísimas gracias, qué lindo que nos dejes con la palabra local, que a lo mejor podemos pensar que no es la lucha, sino la danza entre nuestra pertenencia local y nuestra identidad. Con nuestra pertenencia global somos todos partes de la misma comunidad humana y del mismo planeta Tierra. Andrés, Vecino, te toca el turno entonces a vos de 2 minutos finales.
Gracias, Juan. Bueno, pues un placer para mí haber estado en compañía de todos estos grandes panelistas. Yo simplemente diría que creo que estamos enfrentando un nuevo contrato social. Creo que esta pandemia ha sido una oportunidad para reevaluar dónde estamos y hacia dónde debemos mirar. Creo que es fundamental, como mencionaba Rosalía, el aspecto, digamos, de mirar a lo local, pero también cómo vamos a expandir eso de forma que haya una prioridad, que podamos pensar en el bienestar y equidades a un nivel global, digamos que por fuera de las fronteras, porque de alguna manera nuestros sistemas naturalmente lo que permiten es que hagamos demandas hacia los tomadores de decisiones, digamos más a nivel nacional, usualmente también local, pero tenemos que empezar a pensar cómo podemos trabajar articuladamente con mecanismos institucionales tal vez no tan fuertes a nivel global, y cómo podemos empezar a pensar en clave de equidad a nivel global. Eso nos va a llevar a trabajar juntos, y si trabajamos juntos, como latinoamericanos, como ciudadanos de países de Latinoamérica y del Caribe, va a ser más fácil, y va a ser más fácil poder generar cambios positivos para nuestra población.
Muchísimas gracias, Andrés. Ismael, te toca a vos entonces los últimos 2 minutos, y siempre es un placer escucharte, así que estamos encantados de que puedas cerrar, por favor.
Gracias, Juan. Y para mí ha sido el comenzar este día escuchando a todos mis colegas panelistas, ha sido un buen shot de esperanza, de información, de sabiduría. Siento que la pandemia es un proceso que nos ha tocado vivir para aprender de esa resiliencia que todos tenemos desde que nacemos, ¿verdad? Como seres humanos. Y la capacidad de ser resilientes es la capacidad de superar esos imprevistos, esos obstáculos, esas cosas que a lo mejor no vemos venir o no queremos ver venir, pero que al final tenemos una capacidad resolutiva para salir adelante. Siento desde lo más profundo de mi corazón que, por lo menos para mí, la gran enseñanza de esta pandemia es a seguir empleando más tiempo mirando hacia adentro para lograr, como decía Mahatma Gandhi, ser tú el cambio que quieres ver en el mundo y cambiar ese paradigma. Incluso Rosalía hablaba, y me encantó el énfasis en la educación, del tema de la educación. Ese es un paradigma que tenemos que cambiar, porque nuestra educación en los sistemas públicos, sobre todo, no incluye muchas veces inteligencia emocional, no enseñan a los niños a respirar y a conocer su GPS interior para desde el amor poder derribar tanta separación o ilusión de separación que crean las religiones, las ideologías políticas, los gobiernos y distintas fronteras nacionales, cuando sabemos ya que hoy el mundo es global y el teletrabajo lo ha demostrado, que uno puede trabajar desde cualquier parte del mundo, depende de lo que hagas. Entonces, siento que justamente solo desde ese estado de conciencia elevado y ese mirar hacia adentro podremos, como Rosalía nos decía, que el presidente de la Universidad de Miami, ciudad donde vivo, decía, llegar a esa mejor normalidad y no aspirar a regresar a la antigua normalidad, porque entonces no hemos aprendido nada. Y en lo personal, miro hacia adentro y digo, ¿qué queda dentro de mí de esos 3 cánceres de conciencia empobrecida del ser humano que todavía tengo que extirpar o desterrar? 1, el egoísmo. Cuando yo solo pienso en transacciones donde gano, aunque pierdan los otros. 2, la avaricia, donde nada es suficiente aún en una vida de lujos, mientras otros no tienen prácticamente nada. Y el 3, la apatía, que lamentablemente en una región como América Latina se ha enquistado en la psiquis colectiva, cuando la gente te dice mejor un mal conocido que un bueno por conocer. Entonces, si todos miramos hacia adentro y vemos qué nos queda de egoísmo, qué nos queda de avaricia, qué nos queda de apatía, siento que podremos salir fortalecidos de esta pandemia y ser una mejor humanidad, que es lo que todos estamos aspirando para las próximas generaciones, ¿no?
Ismael, muchísimas gracias. Me alegro que hayas vuelto a traer el tema de la educación. Sabemos que con sistemas educativos fortalecidos podemos construir un mundo en donde cada persona puede vivir de acuerdo a sus sueños y sus máximas aspiraciones, pero también con la educación podemos construir un mundo basado en la cultura del cuidado, en un liderazgo basado en la cultura del cuidado. Ustedes ocupan posiciones de muchísimo liderazgo y han sido extremadamente generosos y generosas no solo con participar del panel hoy, sino con la sinceridad y la conciencia, la atención que le han puesto estos temas. A mí me inspira y me despierta mucha ilusión, y estoy seguro que a muchos y muchas personas que nos escucharon hoy les despierta mucha ilusión saber que personas de la talla de ustedes están en las posiciones que ocupan ustedes hoy. Ustedes, no voy a hacer un resumen extenso, pero ustedes nos han invitado hoy a imaginar que nosotros como humanidad podemos posicionarnos. Esta es una elección, podemos elegir posicionarnos hoy en la víspera de un nuevo mundo. Para construir ese nuevo mundo, tenemos que hacer ciertas cosas. Tenemos que con sinceridad y verdad decir las cosas que no están bien. Si no decimos las cosas que no están bien, ¿cómo vamos a corregirlas? Tenemos que poder comprender, como decía Luis y como dijeron muchos de ustedes, que ninguno puede solo, ninguna persona y ninguna institución y ningún país. Entonces tenemos que trabajar colaborativamente. Tenemos que permitirnos, como hicimos para poder desarrollar en tiempo récord las vacunas, que la experiencia y los saberes de cada uno pueden ser alimento, pueden nutrir la búsqueda del otro. Esto se aplica a todos los ámbitos de nuestra vida. Y quiero dejarnos con esto, porque creo que si nosotros reconocemos que de nosotros mismos y de nosotras mismas depende abrir la puerta de este posible nuevo mundo, la confianza emerge naturalmente. La confianza a veces puede venir de afuera, de nuestros gobernantes, de nuestras creencias, pero a veces puede venir de adentro, de simplemente nuestro propio ADN, que defiende nuestra posibilidad de vivir plenamente en este planeta. Ha sido inmensamente placentero escucharlos. Hoy me toca ahora a mí dar el cierre al panel. Si bien quisiéramos haber tenido muchísimo más tiempo para hacer más preguntas y escuchar más en esta importantísima conversación, los vamos a invitar en los meses que siguen a que puedan estar en contacto con nosotros a través de redes sociales o en próximos eventos y que nos sigan en las redes para poder enterarse de los próximos eventos. A nuestros oradores y nuestras oradoras, mi agradecimiento personal es inmenso hoy. Estamos encantados de que el Foro Mundial para la Ética en los Negocios nos haya convocado a participar de este evento global en un día tan importante como es el Día Mundial de la Salud. En nombre de la Fundación Internacional El Arte de Vivir, quisiera darle las gracias a todos y a todas las participantes que nos escuchan desde distintos países de América Latina y quizás del mundo. Y espero una vez más que podamos volver a encontrarnos pronto en otras instancias, tal vez ya habiendo superado este desafío y mejor preparados y más fortalecidos para superar cualquier sea el desafío que nos toque. Con esto los dejo y les agradezco nuevamente. Muchísimas gracias.
Hi, Rahul.
Hey, good morning, Rajneesh. How are you?
I'm doing really well. It's a beautiful background.
Yeah. These days, this is what you can change. So
Exactly. You control what you can, right?
Yeah, exactly. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you great. Hi, everybody.
Perfect. Hello.
Juan, just confirming
Anita,
that.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Hey guys,
Hello.
good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the session.
Thank you.
Delighted to be here, Sunita, and you'll give us an indication before we go live, right?
Yes, I think we are live on some service right now. I'm just checking. I just pinged one to stop the live. So give me a second, okay?
Hey, Samir. Hey, Madhuri, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, doing good. Are we all in California early morning?
Seattle.
Except me,
Yes,
I'm
I
in
am.
Dallas.
Oh, you're in Dallas, Rajni.
Yes, I am.
Oh.
Guys, we are
Samir,
live
you.
right now. So we are live right now. Rajneesh, I'm gonna start sharing the slides, and in 2 minutes we should be just live. Okay, we should be just starting the session.
Perfect. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our global audience, depending on wherever you're joining from. On behalf of the World Forum for Ethics in Business, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the biggest global summit of the year. The topic this year is Changing Paradigms in a Pandemic World, How to Regain Trust. The World Forum for Ethics in Business is a public interest foundation registered in Belgium. The mandate of the forum includes all manner of pursuing and establishing the indispensable ethical foundations of business in a globalized world. I'm really excited about the session today. Our topic today for this panel is well-being in tech world, now and post-pandemic. And we have a great collection of thought leaders in this space assembled, and I'm looking forward to an engaging and fun conversation with all of you. I'm going to be your moderator today. My name is Rajneesh Gupta. I am passionate about well-being, and I've been meditating for over 20 years very regularly. Professionally, I work for Intuit as their Global Vice President for Strategic Partnerships. So I'll start by introducing the great panel that we have here, starting with Rahul Tripathi. Rahul is the CTO and VP/General Manager for Nutanix. He's also a very well-known and well-recognized thought leader in the industry and has several patents under his belt. So we welcome Rahul. Rahul, if you'd like to add anything to your introduction, and also please share with the group, what does well-being mean to you personally?
Yeah, I think besides professionally, I'm the father of two young adults, one in high school, one in college, and both have been camping with us for the last year. So you can imagine that has been the primary driver of our life in this pandemic world. And what it means to me is it's the holistic wellness about not only your personal but professional life all coming together. And in this pandemic world, it has indeed come together. So my kids keep on joking with me that you seem to be enjoying this pandemic world, because literally I was on the plane, whatever, 200 days in a year, and now not having to travel and still being able to do what you do. That's been actually pretty exciting personally for me. So secretly I have enjoyed the stay at home work scenario.
Thank you for sharing that, Rahul. I can certainly relate to not having to travel, given that I used to travel quite a bit before the pandemic as well. Next, I'll introduce Ekta Chopra. She is the Chief Digital Officer for Elf Beauty, and she is very active in volunteering for not-for-profits, and also is a member of many Silicon Valley CIO and CTO groups. Welcome, Ekta. If you want to add anything, please do. And also please share what wellness or well-being means to you personally.
Hi, well, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me on this. Well-being, I think, it's about, especially for me, what I've learned is it's about putting a mask on myself, because if I don't breathe, I can't help or do anything for anyone. And it's really important to me because I really, I'm very close to my family, my mom, my brother, my sister, everyone is around me, and I want to make sure that I'm there for them. And this is what the pandemic has really taught me, is health is at the center of everything, and your health, because if you can take care of yourself, that's the only way you'll take care of the people that you care for and love. So I would say it's just like, what Rahul said, secretly, pandemic has been a blessing for me. I've really got to spend a lot of time with my daughter. So yeah, that's what well-being means to me.
Very good, Ekta. Thank you very much. I'm going to introduce Samir Kumar next. Samir is the Vice President at Amazon, and he's responsible for Amazon's expansion and export business. He's been with Amazon for a very long time, since 1999, and has worked across several geographies for Amazon, including India, China, and USA. Samir, what does well-being mean to you personally? And if you'd like to add anything else to your introduction.
Thank you, Rajneesh, for having me here. Glad to be here and talking about this topic of well-being. For me personally, well-being means like a combination of few things. It's not just physical, it's also mental and emotional well-being. And it's a balance of those three things, right? Like you cannot just be well without having the mental peace as well as being emotionally sound. So, and as Ekta called out, relations are very important. Like loneliness was one of the things that we talk about a lot. So for me, building those relationships back, being physically fit and healthy, and as well, both at work, at home, is very important. And what we call, like, we don't call at Amazon work-life balance, we call it work-life harmony, because we believe it's kind of a virtuous cycle. If you are happy at work, you'll take that happiness home. And if you're happy at home, you bring that back to work as well. And I think pandemic has kind of blurred that line between work and life. And getting some of that balance back was very important for me as personally. And I echo what Rahul and Ekta both said, like getting closer to family, having kids at home. My college going daughter was here for a while with us. So I was glad to have that. But I do miss the travel piece a bit now.
Thank you, Samir. I love the notion of work-life harmony. That's a great way to think about things. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to next introduce Madhvi Bhasin. Madhvi, welcome to the session. Madhvi leads diversity, inclusion, and belonging at Okta. And I've heard that she's a passionate meditator herself, so we are looking forward to hearing about her meditation experiences as well. Madhvi, what does well-being mean to you personally?
Oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Rajneesh. Thanks, everyone, for having us here. Well-being to me, a couple of things. Personally, well-being to me is, I'm going to repeat a lot of what the panelists have said, but to me, it means that the balance of what your mental, emotional, psychological, and physical well-being is, all of that coming together is to me like the ideal state, but we all strive to have that balance. I think that's where a lot of our effort goes in, of how do we strike a balance between these different aspects. And I also look at well-being in a very different way because of the job that I have, which is to create more spaces for people in my company across in the community where they can bring their authentic selves, feel that psychological safety so that they don't have to put a mask on of who I am, because that causes that extra emotional anxiety and stress. So for me, well-being professionally means creating more spaces where people don't have to take on that additional psychological burden of being stressed, of being like, do I belong here, of feeling alienated. It's creating spaces where everybody feels included. So that's part of like being your authentic self is such an integral part of your psychological well-being. And that's where a lot of my work and professional and personal experiences come in. In terms of meditation, as Rajneesh said, I think I have lost count, but I've been meditating, I think, I don't know what, like 20, 17 years, I don't know. And that has been a very core part of who I am. And I think, especially in these pandemic times, it's something that keeps you grounded, something that gives you the perspective. Not that you're going to change any challenges, you have to still go through the challenges, but it gives you the right perspective to move through it without causing a lot of anxiety for yourself and for people around. So that's what basically well-being and I would say mental health implies for me.
Thank you, Madhvi. It's interesting to hear all of you talk about well-being more holistically. You know, a lot of times one would think of well-being as a physical well-being, or sometimes we may think of it as mental well-being, but so many different aspects you guys brought about this: physical well-being, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, psychological well-being. There's so many aspects to well-being. And as like Madhvi was pointing out, there is a balance across this, which is what we need to seek, which gives us a psychological safety net. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today, and hopefully we can unpack these notions a little bit more. We're also going to be talking about the pandemic. So before we dive into your organizations, your teams, I'd love to hear from you personally. Pandemic has affected all of us in many different ways, some positive, as some of you guys were highlighting, lack of travel, more time with family, but then there are also some challenging aspects. So for your personal well-being during these very interesting times, what strategies are you applying? What are you doing? And I'm going to start with Ekta, and then others can chime in, please.
Yeah. I think, once again, there's the sort of the pandemic impact at work, being in a position where you're leading a large team that's totally distributed. I think it's been about building those connections, being there for my team, and really sort of just checking in on them. How are you doing? How are things going? Because the lines of work and sort of home life have, really blurred now. So that's one aspect. Personally, I think, as I said, like my husband worked from home. I was always traveling. And this is the closest I've been to my 6-year-old daughter. And it's been sort of the most beautiful thing in the world for me. I started painting with her. I have paintings on the wall all over the house that we did together. I didn't know she was such an amazing artist. And I just learned that. And it's just been such a joy of my life. And coming out of the pandemic, I want to understand, how do I continue that balance where I do get to spend this beautiful time with her that's not going to come back, after this age is gone. So I think it's really important that, I carry some of those learnings as I go back into the world. I don't know if I call that the normal world, but the post-pandemic like world. How do I take some of those things and continue those good things on, and really, spend time with my daughter too, while I'm working.
Yeah, that's such an amazing notion, Ekta. Being able to spend time with the family helps us deal with whatever may be going on in our lives. And that's the importance of relationships. Yeah.
If I may add there, like I really love that story that Ikta talked about being close to daughter, and same thing happened to me as well. My daughter came home from college. I had missed out a year with her because I was in India and she had to come back to US for her high school. So me and my wife always discuss, we got that year back with her. So that's plus. But as the pandemic started, one of the key things that I noticed was that the blur between the work and life. And we say at Amazon, if you give a minute, it'll take it, right? So Amazon keeps you busy all the time. So I started working quite a bit more than I was supposed to. And also my physical health was going down because of all the stress and anxiety. So one of the first thing I did was stop watching news and website on COVID. I had built a spreadsheet for following, which used to update automatically about number of cases and number of deaths. One of the things that I stopped doing first thing was get away from that. And other thing I realized to bring back work-life balance was to basically start exercising. One of the first thing happened was you stop commuting. So I got that hour back in the morning where you're not traveling to your workplace. And I used to not like that because you're stuck in traffic jam of Seattle sitting there. And I also at the same time didn't like exercising. So I said, why don't I turn on my NPR channel and get on my exercise bike or elliptical and listen to my radio and think about I'm commuting to work. And that's what I did. And that became a habit. And for the past year, one of the best things that has happened to me is that I am exercising 6 days a week. I am taking care of my food habits. I'm not eating out as much, so eating healthy. And that physical health has helped me improve my even emotional well-being, so that having that work-life harmony back, as well as taking care of my physical health and getting into some of the hobby has been some of those things that has helped me. At the same time, some of the anxieties and some of the other things have been the negative factor. I believe that we are getting into a new normal, as whatever Ekta called that, what will the normal be? But some of the things that I'll take away and continue to carry is managing that balance between physical, emotional, as well as the mental well-being. So that's my story in the pandemic.
Thank you, Samir. So many great nuggets there. Yeah. Madhvi, Rahul, you want to add anything there?
I can definitely jump in. I think my realization during the pandemic has been first grade school is much more difficult than my day job. I just think I used to think, oh my God, my job is so difficult. I have realized first grade is even more difficult. So this is part of me with me in one room on my Zoom calls and my 7-year-old in his room with his Zoom calls, which has been I think they're getting balanced. A lot of my meditations have not helped. There has been a lot of anxiety, especially at the start of the pandemic. I think I have definitely enjoyed spending time with me, but I have a hyperactive 7-year-old. Getting him to sit on a Zoom call is challenging. And my biggest piece is I know we have gotten so much time, as everybody said, which I've loved to spend with our kids, but my heart really goes out for these kids. They were not wired to study on Zoom and socialize on Zoom. And from where I come, I've seen so many working moms and parents struggle with that. So that had definitely been a very steep adaptation curve for me. I literally had to step back and think through of how do I really want to approach this without me losing my sanity. It was to a point of how do I balance these things? So that has obviously given me a little bit of a pause of like, let's reprioritize what's important. Like, it's not like he needs to be perfect. I know Ekta's quote behind her says it all, but it's a little bit of like, what do you give and take? Because this pandemic, like, none of us were prepared for this. None of us knew what like the playbook is. So I think it's a lot of lessons in learning how to reprioritize. What do you give? What do you take? And what do you settle for, which is less than perfect at this point? Because there was a point where it was just a question of like survival. Let's just get through this. But kids were still on Zoom. They were still like had to get stuff done. So I think for me, the biggest takeaway is a little bit of reprioritization and changing my lens. I've always been an A-type student. I want kid to be that, but it has really given me a pause of what it implies and what it means, and what do I want to prioritize when life is full of so much anxiety. It's a lot of, like, as we said, a lot of my sanity and my mental health. So that's definitely been primary for me. And before I turn it over to Rahul, I just want to make a point about, we all have talked so much about families and kids being so central and important to how we have navigated this pandemic life. In my job and my profession, I get to interact with a lot of people who face different challenges in what they are doing. I also want to bring out, like, there is a huge segment of the population who don't have this joy. There are a lot of people who are still single, and I have heard and been part of those groups and conversations where they really feel this pandemic has impacted them so much in terms of how isolated they feel. So I really think, despite of all the challenges we face, we have that blessing, and it's important to keep in mind that a lot of people even don't have that relationship and that family and that safety net, and now minus like the social interaction. So this is so much more difficult for many people around us.
Yeah, I think not only the social interaction, but all of us belong to the tech world. And I think, to put it in perspective, we are blessed to be even working and continuing to do what we do. So I think minus the social connection, which is somewhat missing now because you get into a meeting, get your work done and move. I think that's the biggest thing on the professional side. And some of the things we thought about was the psychological safety that Madhavi, you talked about, right? It's okay to show up on a video call with like whatever dress you are in. So actually I've been wearing this, I've worn this shirt after like so many months because I just got tired of wearing t-shirts. And I would go in a 7 a.m. meeting and turn on and I'm almost like in my half nightwear kind of clothes. And that gives psychological safety to people. It's okay to just show up however you are and kind of talk through it, and also letting people slack a little bit, because this is not the time when people have to burn the candle on both ends, because they are, right? If we have hired the right people, they are actually doing that. So it's the other way around. Okay. So I think that's somehow on the professional side. And on the personal side, what worked for me personally is taking a little bit of break. So instead of 30 minutes, 25-minute meetings and just 5 minutes, just go out, take a break, do a little bit of breathing. And I think what Ekta, you, Madhavi said, I think breathing meditation has been very, very helpful. And for me personally, cooking has been a great thing for me, right? With my boys, kind of just cooking and making a dish together. That's been a great stress reliever.
Well said, Rahul. You know, my wife jokes with me. She says that when I cook, it's a stress buster for me, but it's a stress creator for the rest of the family. So we've decided to let it go. But thank you for sharing all your thoughts. And you guys are obviously very much focused on well-being and lots of interesting strategies, from spending time with the family to cooking to just taking a pause. Lots of interesting things I've heard. Now, when I talk to some of my team members and friends, a lot of people think of well-being as something that is personal. It's a personal development tool, which it certainly is. But very few people realize that it's equally important in professional life. It's really hard to be successful professionally if one is not focused on personal life, personal well-being. So I'd love to hear from you as you think about your own focus on well-being. How does it help you in your professional life? And I'll start with Madhavi here.
That's very interesting, because I very strongly believe in this, and this is what I advocate for every company, every group that I've worked with. you don't leave your personality and your personal self at the door. It's not like, I'm walking into my office virtually now, I badge in and I've left my personality and who I am as a person at the door. And now I'm just like the professional self. So that's kind of very important to understand, that you hire a person, it's a package. You don't just hire someone's professional side and then let alone the personal piece. So if you're leaders, you have to understand that it comes as a package. So you have to deal with it as a package. You can't say like, don't bring your personal stress to work. That's really not possible. That's not going to happen. For me, how that helps is a lot of what I do is making sure that I'm creating processes and spaces, as I said, where people can feel included, where people can bring their best selves. And that's not always the case. People have a lot of anxiety. People have a lot of concerns. There are a lot of issues. If I'm not showing up as calm and centered, I'm not going to help anybody in that situation. Usually, a lot of people who come to me are trying to understand how to navigate through certain problems and certain issues. If I'm caught up in a lot of my own anxiety and not like centered, then I'm not bringing any value to what I'm trying to do. And a lot of what I do is change management. And for change management, you have to make sure that you are presenting a case to someone where they feel that they are part of the change. So that all comes from the fact that you yourself are centered, you are able to see different perspectives. And that can only come with, as I said, when you're emotionally and psychologically more balanced and centered. So I definitely feel, sometimes my mom jokes that I studied international relations and I'm not using any of it in my job. I was like, I don't need that school education in my job. I use my everyday meditation and I bring it to every single meeting that I have. Because if I'm not calm and centered and balanced, I cannot do my job. So for me, it's more critical than the education that I got, the fact that I have these practices to lean back on and that bring it back to the whole community in the form of how I show up. So it's super critical in terms of how successful or not successful I am in what I'm doing.
That's amazing to hear, Madhvi. And given your passion and experience with meditation and what it brings to you for your own professional life, have you tried to bring it to your teams and your organization, and any experiences you can share there?
Oh, definitely. Oh my God. From a small to a big organization wherever I've been, I still remember my first job in the US where I wasn't sure like how people would react to the meditation. I started like a team meditation at Thursday at 11. I don't know why, but that's been my standard. And I still do that with a lot of my team members. And we, especially at Okta, have like, mental health as one of the primary pillars. So we do have like, every employee at Okta can access like a meditation session one-on-one. And we have a lot of like mental health support sessions. And I definitely bring a lot of that to my team as well. And it just helps, it breaks down that barrier of like, as I said, like the professional and personal, because you bring it into that space where you're like, you as a leader are creating that space and sending the message that it's okay to have some anxiety, to be anxious, but there are practices that can help you. So it has definitely helped me bond so much with my team. And then everybody knows, why do I have a block on my calendar for like, my meditation, and people respect that a lot. So it does help send a message to your wider team and makes that part of that culture where this is normalized rather than being an exception.
Yeah, and like you said, when leaders commit to it, then that's where the culture flows and team feels more open to it. Anybody else have experience with meditation, similar practices at work? Samir, I see you raising your hand.
I think it's not just meditation. I want to just agree with Madhvi, what she said around what you do. You cannot separate out work and life. It's sometimes they just blend into each other, even when we are not in pandemic. So as I talked about the harmony that you need to maintain, and you need to be authentic. And authenticity doesn't go, you just don't put on a face when you get to work. So it's very important to be authentic. So if you are stressed out at home, you'll take that stress to work. And what pandemic has shown is that mindfulness, we sit in reviews throughout the day. And if you're not present, if you're not mindful, then you won't have a good review. Your team will notice that. So it's very important to be present and be mindful. And that connection is very important, like with what you do at work and what you do in life. And I have personally believed, and I heard it somewhere, that leadership is a contact sport. So pandemic has sort of like, you cannot be in control. I used to lead by, hey, talking to people, going to their desk. That is not there, but that contact has to be maintained somehow. So we do it now over Chime and Zoom or any other mechanisms we have. But it's very, very important for me to be leading with empathy. And that only happens when I'm mindful, when I'm well, and I'm thinking right. And that's where, like, if you are well at home, you'll be well at work. So that's what you bring in your professional life on any given day. So whether it's meditation or whether it's you are having a cup of tea with your wife in the morning that makes you happy, whatever it takes, like, you need to be present and mindful. That's what I believe you need to bring to your professional life as well.
And just to add to that, so in our case, we have a global workforce and we poll these people, do the pulse survey every quarter. And over the pandemic, quarter over quarter, we could see that basically the work-life balance is getting out. And I think Madhavi said work-life harmony. I agree with that. And interestingly, what you find is when you start asking people, what are the issues? Across the world, there are different kind of issues. Like in several, whether it is India, whether it's Serbia, what we found was just people stuck at home with basically a lot of the family around them not having enough space to work, right, was the issue. People with young families where both parents are working with the young kids and school happening and somebody helping the kid with the Zoom, that was an issue, right? So there are different kind of issues that are surfacing. And there is no one answer to it. You can't just say, here is what you do, and you can't give them a technical training or a soft skill training to make it happen. So what we thought was the only thing that can help them is they can have internal mechanism to figure it out. So actually at Nutanix, we rolled out these breath and meditation workshops, and then we offered them to people. And it was interesting to see that how many people across the world actually opted to take some time off their hours and just do it. And then we did one for executives as well. And then our CEO and our head of HR, everybody joined in. And the funny thing was when we did a debrief, it was like, we couldn't believe you could slow down that much because you were spending so much time during the day, 100 miles an hour. And then you came in and your space in 15, 20 minutes, you were like totally centered. And I think that emanates, if the leadership really believes in it, follows it, then it really emanates to people around you. And then if everybody is calm, right, things work much better. You can't just create more stress in a stressy situation. You're not going to get anywhere. So that's what some of the coping mechanisms, so those mechanisms exist. Unfortunately, in the corporate world, we have all relied on hard skill training and train people on having difficult conversations and train people on the technology. But we have not really prioritized training people on how to handle themselves, their mind, their stress. And I think that's one of the ways to do it.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah. Samir, I wanted to pick on something you mentioned, and you talked about the importance of for leaders to be present. It's much easier to be present in an office situation where you're always there, and then somebody walks into your room and you can give them your full attention. In the pandemic world, it's much harder, and people may not feel that comfortable just giving you a phone call or finding time with you. So what can a leader do in this world to be more present and also to be more conscious of their employee well-being?
I think it starts with, first of all, acknowledging that you need to be there for them. So one of the things that used to happen, and it happened to me as well, is that I never had a kind of a dedicated one-on-one with my boss because I could walk in and get a 5-minute time with him at any time. And that went away for me. And I realized that within a few months in the pandemic that not only I need to build that connection with my manager, but I also need to do the same thing with my rest of my team. The good thing about my team was I already had 3 of my directs who were around the world. So I had to have the remote connectivity, but I had to build that with rest of the team. So having more contact, as I said, like whether it's through a Slack message in a day or through a quick call with your team or a quick call with a direct and asking how you are doing, or just saying good morning to the team, and be responsive with email as well. If somebody is celebrating something, we launch something, be there, be present for them is important. And it's not the same as in the physical world where you can go walk to somebody and say thank you, but it's very important to give that gratitude. And we are all very thankful, as Rahul said, that somebody said that, especially us, like Amazon, we've been lucky. We work in kind of the vaccine or therapy industry for the rest of the world during the pandemic, because we're on the front line serving customers. And we are very lucky to have our job, and thankful that we are still growing the business. So, but still with that, the anxiety at work, at home, school, all of those were impacting the team. So being present for them, being ready to listen to the team, and wherever possible saying thank you, and was very important. So those are some of the mechanisms that we have built, but there's more to do. There's more to do. And I want to go back to one of the Rahul said, that surveys and listening to your team. One of the mechanisms we have at Amazon, we don't do quarterly survey. We have a question that we ask the entire Amazon every day, one simple question. Like it pops up on your screen when you log into your Amazon account first thing in the morning. Everybody at Amazon gets that one question. And it's either about something about work or well-being or how you're doing. It's kind of like when you get a package from Amazon, you get how am I doing, or did I satisfy you, yes or no question. It's similar to that. So you very quickly get out of the way. You get in and get out. But it's very impactful because over time you can see the trend in the organization. So it's not like it's a continuous process. And that has been a very helpful tool for us, even during the pandemic. We could see the trend in the organization. And at times you can cater the question to your organization and see how they are doing, but it's a daily thing. So that one mechanism has also worked quite well for us.
That's amazing. Amazon's always in many of these dimensions at the cutting edge of how things are done. And I love the idea of just doing a quick question so you can get a pulse of the organization real time, and not on a quarterly basis, but on a daily basis. That's an amazing thought. Yeah. Now, we started talking about our organizations and our teams, and obviously the pandemic has not only affected us, but has affected our teams, has affected our organizations. What changes do you observe in your employee well-being the most? What changes are most noticeable for you? And maybe we'll start with you, Ekta, this time.
Yeah, I think, pandemic has impacted everyone differently. Singles, parents, whether it be, so in the biggest change that I've seen in my team was mostly remote. They're, all around sort of US, they're in India, they're sort of all over the place. And it was always remote in some cases. For them, it was not a big change, but the positive change was they got to interact with the company a lot more than they ever did before. So like one of my QA engineers who lives under the, stone or whatever you call it, rock, and he never interacted with anyone, all of a sudden was the most chatty person on our town halls, and he would be like, so chatty. And I was like, wow, he felt so engaged, more engaged with the team than he ever did before. And I think that's why I say that it impacted people differently around, in many different ways. We, as a company, also instituted a bi-weekly town hall with the whole company. Everyone just shows up, and we start our meetings with meditations, and it's like 5 minutes. That's it. Breathing exercise. That's all you do. And it's led by two of the people who are actual yoga teachers in as a practice. And they just, sort of lead this meditation. So one other change that we instituted is, every leader in the company has to host some sort of a mindfulness exercise. It could be anything. It could be painting, it could be breathing, whatever you're comfortable with, even post-pandemic, because it's a real deal. Like mental well-being is a real deal. And the impacts of what's happening right now are actually going to carry over in several years from now, right? Like on your kids, on your families and so forth. So how do you maintain that connectivity regardless of what's happening in the world around you? So I'd say those are the changes that I'm seeing, that some people are more connected. There's been some positive things. There's been some impactful things, but yeah. So those are the major changes that.
Oh, very interesting, Ekta. And I'm particularly intrigued with the notion of having mandated almost for all the leaders to hold some sort of mindful sessions with their teams. I assume they happen online. And how do you manage participation is it required for everybody to join, or is it opt-in? And what have you seen around people's participation?
Yeah, it's definitely opt-in, because it's sometimes you do these happy hours and you think people want to join in. No, they don't. Sometimes they're like, leave me alone. I get this half an hour of time where I can just focus and do nothing. So I think it's definitely opt-in. So we have a Slack group. It's very organic. I love cooking, by the way, Rahul. Like that's like my just de-stressor. When I cook, I'm creative, because at heart I'm a poet, and so it just feels like such a creative thing for me, and it de-stresses everything. So I host like cooking classes. I'll be like, I'm cooking up a awesome butter chicken recipe if you guys want to chime in or something. So I think it's a very much an opt-in. Every leader is doing different things. Some are doing breathing exercises, some are doing just like HIIT classes on Zoom, some are doing even laughter exercises like, hey, just do like some sort of stand-up comedy or something if somebody has a talent. So it is very much about opt-in. If you have time, take advantage of this, because it's going to help you just relax and not think about work.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any changes you're noticing in employee well-being that is worth highlighting?
Yeah, I think I will add that the social connection is the biggest missing part right now, especially, and there are several people who have joined during the pandemic. They have never seen their colleagues. Yeah. And then we used to have these in-person events where you'll meet, so you will get to see the whole self. Like Madhavi had said, the whole self, and then that you don't see anymore. So we had to replicate mechanisms to build the social connections. And one thing we realized, there's no one size fits all. Some people love the happy hour. Some people just don't want to stay out of it. So I think, and we had to create wellness days. Sometimes people I just want a day off. That's it, right? So we had to create wellness days. You take some time off. And then some of the things that really, I think, worked were, we created a monthly celebration of all the people that had their anniversaries in that month. And that meeting is all about celebrating you, and you don't talk work. And all you talk about is your favorite moment at work, something about yourself that nobody knows. And it's all about you. And interestingly, there we learned stories like somebody really grows heirloom tomatoes like nobody else. There is a lady in our team who got stranded in Aruba and had to be like, there's a GoFundMe campaign to bring her back. So these kind of stories we never hear, and that really builds connections amongst people. So I think that's the really tough part. How do you get that going? And there's some success and some still work to do, a lot more work to do in that area.
Very much so. Rahul, that reminded me of something that I did with my team, which was very well received. One of the things we did was to learn better about each other. We asked everybody to bring a picture that best describes their childhood. And one particular individual, he bought a picture which was just black. There was nothing on the picture. And he said, when I grew up in a very small place where there was no power at all. And it used to be cold winters and it used to be dark all the time. It's like when I think about my childhood, that is what I remember. It was such an interesting thing for everybody to learn. Yeah. We've been talking about the pandemic, and a lot of times it brought about, you guys shared that it doesn't affect everybody equally. And, Madhavi was talking about how singles may be more impacted because they miss the social connection a lot more. They don't have a family or kids to hang on to. Another group that has been very significantly impacted, especially in work situations, is women. If you read a lot of literature, you would see that the layoffs are just the effect on ratings, etc., for women has been much more pronounced than has been for males. So I'd love to hear from you, and maybe Madhavi, we could start with you here. What are you observing as it relates to the effect of pandemic for women employees?
Oh, it's huge. I think you are very right in saying that, Rajesh. Like if you look at a lot of research right now, it has impacted everybody, but in terms of women and working mothers, it has definitely impacted them disproportionately. And I come from the space of diversity and inclusion and building the women in the workforce. I just like, there has been so much research, and we strongly believe we have moved back like 5 to 7 years in terms of women's participation in the workforce. So that's a big thing. A lot of women are out of the workforce right now, given the pandemic, whether it was due to layoffs or whether if you made the choice, like you need to support your kids, they're not going to school, they're not going to daycare, what do you need to do? So bringing that workforce back in is going to be a challenge. Like I think the industry numbers also in tech have taken a step back. That's one piece of the challenge, which we have to be very mindful of when we move forward. But the other piece of the challenge is the women who are in the workforce right now. Like they are beyond exhausted. Like I know we just had International Women's Month and History Month, and we had International Women's Day. And I was kind of a little taken aback when I realized the theme for the International Women's Day this year was like, I choose to challenge. And I was like, I don't choose to challenge. I don't have the energy to challenge. Like, don't ask me after 1 year of pandemic with like being a working mom, you want me to challenge the status quo? I was like, I have zero energy. If you are an ally, step up and say like, this is a year for women to rest. Take a step back, and the system and your allies and everybody will make sure that we support you. This is a time to support more women. If you have them as team members, if you have them as leaders, create the space so that you can support them, and rather than expecting like, oh, you are like, I really don't write this judgment. You're an amazing working mom. I'm like, you don't know. I'm like right now exhausted. I'm an exhausted working mom. Don't put additional pressure on me by saying you're such an amazing mom, because that also comes with some judgment of like, you want me to be amazing. I'm like, why do I need to be amazing? Like, kind of the system, can't like this support network be amazing? I would rather prefer being an average mom with an amazing support structure. Can we build that for women? So to me, it has impacted them a lot. And I sometimes also feel like we all are getting ready for the post-pandemic world. In my mind, that shot in your arm will not come with any degree of rest for the moms who are exhausted. What are we doing for that? Like, we talk so much about the mental well-being. Are we building anything so that the moms can regain a lot of their like stress? So to me, I just feel like there needs to be some kind of like a concerted effort to make sure that once we reopen and go back to the normal, like everything is normal. Like, did you even address everything that the mothers had gone through? Like, what are we doing for that? So to me, that is a real conversation that you need to have. And I just want to wrap up this section by saying, like, if you know of a female who has been promoted this year, please give her additional kudos, because she has done this in addition to all the stress and the anxiety. So my heart really goes out to any female or working mom who has received any kind of promotion, any kind of merit increase in a pandemic. Give yourselves a pat and take some time off and rest. You truly, truly deserve it.
Very well said, Madhvi. And just this notion of providing some rest, and not we live in a very type A type of society where only effort is awarded, and sometimes one has to just move slow to move fast, if you will. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted. I know all of you wanted to add your thoughts.
I was going to reflect on I that was very passionate and very it touched my heart. But I have two anecdotes on my working career. Like, one is from the work, which is basically I was having a conversation pre-pandemic with one of a women colleague who works for me, and she was going on a trip to China. I had asked her to go to do something in China. And she talked to me that she was leaving 3 days later, but she was preparing for that now because she was making lunch and dinner and putting in the refrigerator for her kids and the father. And then she was talking about, here are the 7 things that she need to take care of, who will drive the kid to a school and then bring the kid back. And I was just trying to remember that I also go on a trip, and I basically 30 minutes before the trip, I go pack up my bag and leave in my car. And that was one of the key revelation for me at that point, that look, there is more than, like, we have a good support system, and what Madhvi said, that supporting women at work and women in our life is so important for all of us. So that's my first anecdote, and I took that and I wrote a little bit about that in the LinkedIn as well. But I take that as, women needs to be supported. And my second anecdote is during pandemic, you come home and my wife, she's a homemaker. But at the same time, she sacrificed so much for us during the pandemic, because this room that I'm sitting in, this is her meditation puja room. And I took it over because it became my office. My daughter came back from college and she took her room back, which was kind of her work area, my wife's work area. She gave that up. She had her free time during the day, and now she was taking care of the entire family. And I started to relate that she's a homemaker. Imagine a working mom in that situation. And so I completely agree, giving kudos to all the women that are working for us and working with us. It's going to be very important. And especially during this performance review cycle that we are going through, being aware of that and taking care of that will be very important for all of us. And it's just not, pandemic is just an event. And I agree with Madhvi that we need to do that on a continuous basis. It's not a thing that's going to just pandemic is going to do that. Doing that going forward, or even looking back at it, learning from our previous experience is going to be very important for all of us. If you want to build a diverse, inclusive, and equal world, that's going to be very important for all of us.
Thanks, Sami. What a powerful story. Sorry, Rahul, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think one thing I seen work, and I think I totally agree with Madhvi that it's all about creating that support system. And one of my colleagues, they have young children, both of them are working, and they created this kind of timetable amongst themselves. So basically 9 to 11 is one person, 11 to 1. And this person then just blocked off his calendar, right? And then whatever meeting is, and then if the boundaries were created and we supported it, and I think it just, we could make it work. So the point is, I think we have to be able to create those boundaries, right? And for some reason, women to feel pressured that to perform, they have to be master of all respects is actually putting too much pressure on them, right? So I think as an organization, we need to create that psychological safety again to really be able to do, yeah, it's fine if you have to take 2 hours and then, or if in those 2 hours or whatever, kids are coming in to the Zoom calls, and so be it, right? That's fine. So I think it's a really tough topic, and I don't think there are really simple answers there. It's part of it is like easing on the part of organization, part of easing on part of the leaders, and part of it is easing on the part of women themselves, that it's okay if you are a strong leader, it's okay to be vulnerable and share that this is not working for me, right? I think it goes on all sides of the equation and clearly a big challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. If I may just add, like, first of all, you know, Madhvi's letter was very inspirational. And I told her even that it really is about, I didn't choose to challenge either because I was like, I am so exhausted in my mind right now that I don't have time to fight anything. I'm just going to do my best. And it's okay if things are not perfect. And that's why I love this quote. But what I'll say personally for me, my husband is my partner in crime. Like, he is the most wonderful partner anybody could ever ask for. Like, in this pandemic, I didn't feel like I was all alone in it. I had to prepare lunch. I had to prepare dinner. I had to do this. I had to do this for my daughter. He just was there in anything that I needed. So I think that really helps when you have a support system just at home, which starts with your family, whether you're married or unmarried. And, you know, having that support system was my biggest thing that I could have ever asked for survival during pandemic. And I think, you know, at workplace, I created sort of this small work group of women, and it was all about, hey, this is a 30-minute session. Just come and just like say whatever you want, like whatever. And it could be like, I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted, you know, whatever it is, just vent. This is a venting session. And I think that really, really helped because these women just didn't even have the space to go and breathe sometimes in the day. So it allowed them to just do that. So my team personally, we just created the space for just women. And we were like, just come in and talk, say whatever you want, no judgments, whatever you want. So, but personally, like, I feel like my journey was easier because my husband was like right next to me.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Ekta, for sharing that. Madhavi was previously talking about psychological safety, and I see your initiative of just creating a safe space for women to come together and talk. That gives the psychological safety and comfort that somebody is willing to hear me and relate to what I'm saying. So thank you and all the anecdotes were really, really inspiring. I'm going to move us along. We are a little short on time, and I did want to touch on the future. Madhavi was already talking about we're going to get a shot in the arm, many of us already on the way. Now, as you think about the future, when we put the pandemic behind us, do you think the workplaces, and as it relates to well-being in the workplace, would be the same? If not, what changes do you think we would experience going forward? I'm going to start with Rahul.
Maybe I can yeah. So I think some things, so we have a habit of snapping back very quickly. So if, in my view, once things go back, it'll be a little bit of a lull, and then we will just be back in our commute and going back to this and back-to-back meetings and all that stuff. So I think that'll come back, but this time around, people come with a different perspective. One, they come with a solid perspective on the importance of family life, importance of self, importance of well-being, and all the tricks of the trade they have learned along the way to cope. Right? I think they will probably stay more than the usual corporate things around. You have massages, you have all. So I think this should really help people reinforce the value of taking care of yourself, and only you can do it. Nobody around you can do it. So I think that'll happen. Some of the stuff around, I think the flexible workplace to really reduce some stress, everybody remote being on the same footing. Maybe we'll go back to once a day, meet in person, but the rest is all flexible because people realize. And I think the third biggest thing in my mind would be probably flying into London for a 2-hour meeting, which you thought was the most important face-to-face meeting. And now everybody has realized, either your customer or yourself, no, it needn't be that way. You can still sit at home and do that 2-hour meeting. You don't have to spend 24 hours doing it. So that should ease the pain. And I think the value of family, and I've seen many people in my own organization now decide like somebody wants to move back to Australia because his wife has a 92-year-old mom, and they realize this is the time, this is the importance of the family. So I think that perspective will come in. So some of this thing will be underscored even more, but I'm afraid actually we may go back to the usual self if we are not very careful.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul. I hear your comments as this good side of pandemic. There are good things that have come out of pandemic. There are bad things that have come out of pandemic. As we leave the pandemic behind us, the good things would likely continue, and the bad things we may leave behind. Anybody else wants to add any quick thoughts different from what Rahul shared?
I think I can just expand on a couple of that. From where I sit, I definitely think one thing that has happened is we have normalized the conversation about mental health in the workplace. In terms of inclusion, we have been trying a lot to do that. It has always been considered this is the job of your benefits team and your D&I team. They talk about mental health. I'm like a tech leader. I'm a product leader. I don't talk about this. But I think that has changed. You have normalized the conversation about mental health, going back to Rahul's point. And the other piece is, I feel that the workplace will become more inclusive. You will not have a lot of people were feeling like, they don't belong in the workplace. There was I'm short, I'm fat, I can't dress up. All those things have kind of gone away. It's become much more inclusive. But I also feel, going back to Rahul's point, the one challenge that I think might be a detriment to this is right now it's a level playing field. Everybody is remote. So you don't have that meeting after the meeting happening because nobody is in the office. Once that level playing field changes, I'm a little skeptical that things might be now some people are remote, some are not, how those dynamics are being played out. That to me might have a different impact, but I definitely think in terms of being more inclusive and being more open, I don't think we can go back to exactly where we were. Perhaps it's not as open as now, but we'll not go back to just shut off your mental health and be less inclusive. I think that's something to stay, and that I think we as leaders have to find creative ways so that we keep it alive. Because if we are not intentionally doing that, and if we fall back into our patterns, then then it's not going to happen. So we should understand that we have the responsibility of keeping some of these good things, as you said, Rajneesh, because it's not going to happen on its own. So we have to put in that effort.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah,
Samir,
I'll echo that it has to be intentional, because and you have to build mechanisms, and Rahul was talking about, and mechanisms are something that we talk about always, is complete process. You need to have basically good audit mechanism as well for your processes to ensure that they persist, because otherwise we'll revert back. So there is heightened awareness, there is that normalization that has happened, and we need to make sure what are the good things we can take away and sustain. The flexibility in workplace, ability to work remotely are some of the good things that we have. So we should look at what are the key things we can take away while maintaining well-being, like things like no meetings Friday, or having regular happy hours. It may become more social event, but at the same time managing those and maintaining some of those good things that we have learned in the past year, and take those takeaway and make it intentional as leaders will help us.
Yeah. You know, I would love to continue this conversation forever, but seems like we are close to time. I really, from the bottom of my heart, want to first of all thank the four of you. Such an engaging and delightful conversation. I think it was Madhvi who started off by saying that, you know, we want everybody to bring their whole self to work. I think we brought our whole self to this conversation. Lots of great insights and lots of thought-provoking thoughts for me. It's not an end, I would say. It's the end of a beginning. I think we made a great start today. Let's continue the conversation. You know, the World Forum for Ethics in Business would love to continue to stay in touch with all of you. Also, this session, as you know, was live streamed on YouTube for everybody around the globe to watch. And then there's a Twitter handle as well. So please do continue to interact with the forum and this session, either on Twitter or on YouTube or any other social media handles of your choosing. Once again, thank you very much for joining the session, and hope you guys have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajneesh, for
Thank you,
hosting
Rajneesh.
us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Likewise.
Thank you.